Chaverim, you may be seated. I want to spend a few minutes this morning with you reflecting on a little piece of the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 utterances that form the ultimate pinnacle of our parasha this week. And before I do, and in case you didn't memorize them while we were reading them, and you want to peek, that's page 442 in the Chumashim. But I want you to tell me which of the Aseret HaDibrot did our sages suggest was the most difficult to fulfill? Covet. Okay, coveting apparently was really easy. Don't coveting, maybe a little more challenging. Okay, I will accept with that emendation that you're both referring to that same commandment. Okay, why do you say that? And it's like, it just kind of like happens. You covet before you can even think about the fact that you're coveting. Okay, that seems like a good, solid argument. I will only tell you that that is not the one that the sages chose. You got 9 others, so let's see who's going to be brave. Michael. Okay, your case for that one? And the Israelites definitely blow it on that one. That is true. However, that is also not the one that the sages chose as the most difficult. EJ. Okay. So it's the question of how about belief, and how central and essential is it for me to do everything? And you'll be shocked to learn that the rabbis didn't pick that one either. In fact, there's a remarkable piece of Midrashic Agadah in which they say that they put this into the mouth of the Holy One, better that they should forget me than they should forget my Torah. That the behavioral, that the practice, the observance, the engagement will eventually lead them back to God. Okay? Susan. It's getting easier and easier because we're knocking out more and more mitzvot. Okay? Make your case. Okay. Well, you'll be happy to know that the rabbis agreed with you. The sages looked at the mitzvah of kibud avayim, of honoring one's parents, as absolutely the most impossible mitzvah to fulfill, in part because of what you said. It is a lifetime activity, and the sages, as we're going to see in a moment, define kibud avayim as almost limitless. So, I want to make our campers work a little bit, right? Okay, so if I were to ask the 4 of you, I'll throw Caleb in, even though he's trying to hide in the back over there. Oh, and Max is hiding over here. Okay, by the way, I'm hiding over here really sort of undermines the whole hiding part. All right, so how do you honor your parents? What do you think that means when the Torah says, "Kabed et avicha v'et imecha," honor your father and your mother? How do you do that? I've stymied them. You're not a camper, but okay. We'll determine that in a moment, but go ahead. Okay, so one example is by helping and facilitating your parents' activity. And doing it in a way that honors and respects their beliefs and practices. Okay? Can someone give another example? Behavior is a reflection on our parents. Yes. How many of us have heard, "Oh, you're so-and-so's kid"? I grew up with that. I hated that. Those were some of my least favorite words in the English language. The only thing I can say is that eventually the tables got turned a little bit. One of the first times when my mother came to visit me in my first congregation, I'm introducing her, and someone says, "Oh, you're the rabbi's mother." It was the first time in my life that I wasn't Leona's son. It was a machaya. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, but I saw her hand first, and then I'll go to Max. Okay, and I'm going to tie that to what Guy said, which is what's the best way to pass those values is to live those values. Hey, Max. Okay, so how you...
Remember that in like next year?
Or tomorrow. All right, so it's about how you speak about how you engage with the generations that come before you. And it's interesting that you introduced that because the rabbis too have to figure out how to define the term kabed et avicha v'et imecha. Honor your father and your mother. All right, our sages were really interested in trying to say, how do you do that? So they came up with two categories, one was honor, which are the positive things you do for them, and the other is morah, where you show a certain awe and reverence for them by not doing certain things. So what you described, Max, very much falls into the not do kind of category. And other things, some of the examples that they give are, for example, you don't sit in your parents' place at the table, in the synagogue. It's considered disrespectful. It's considered a usurpation of their role, their status, their stature. Right? So you've got two categories now of what to do and what not to do, and the rabbis really looked at these as almost limitless. There's a discussion in the Tractate of Kiddushin where this is talked about, and it talks about the obligations that a parent has to the child, which we'll save for a different day, and the obligations that the child has for the parent. And as part of the discussion in the Talmud there, One of the rabbis wants to show off a little bit. And he says, the other day my mother was walking through the market and it was muddy, and I got down on my hands and my knees and I put my hands under her feet so as she was walking across the muddy path so she shouldn't get her feet dirty. Sounds impressive, yes? The rabbis go, it's nice, but maybe you got 10% of the mitzvah. And I'm thinking like, I have never ever done that. I don't really envision myself ever doing that, right? But the rabbis were not impressed with that. And that triggers a series of other examples of rabbis doing all sorts of what they considered impressive things on behalf of their parents. And the rabbis are going like, that's nice, but no, not so much. But the most amazing statement in that whole discussion is one of the sages says, thank God. And I understand how he starts that. Thank God. I praise God. I'm grateful to God that I was born an orphan. And I remember reading this for the first time going like, is this guy crazy? We so need our parents. We're so dependent on them when we're young. We come to appreciate them on all sorts of different levels as we get older and perhaps a little wiser. And I'm thinking, sugar? And so the rabbis push him because they too are a little stymied by his statement. And he explains that by having been born an orphan, he never failed this mitzvah because it is impossible. And so he's grateful for the fact that he was exempt from a mitzvah, from a commandment that is ultimately limitless and impossible to fully fulfill because, as Susan noted, we are human and we're going to mess up at times, and we may say or do or act in a way that does not honor and respect our parents. Martha. Okay. You'll be shocked that the rabbis dealt with this. um,
The commandment loved him.
Yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. And part of it is they draw distinctions along the following. Your emotional connection may not be there, but there are still certain obligations. So, for example, and part of the way the rabbis grapple with it is the parent is no less obligated to the performance of mitzvot, and the disavowal of that means that one has an opportunity to distance oneself a little bit. Second, even if the positive mitzvot, the positive side of, I can't bring myself to do what Beth described Ann doing and her siblings doing for their parent. It doesn't remove the negative side of, okay, yeah, the guy's a no-goodnik, and I use that term no-goodnik because of our campers. Otherwise, I'd use a different term, all right, of maximal proportions, but I don't say that. So they try to find ways to sort of guide us through, and I will tell you, I had a congregant who came to me after their parent died and said, Rabbi, I don't know if you know how to answer this question, but my dad was abusive. What do I do? Do I sit Shiva? Why not sit Shiva? It's clear that there's an obligation imposed here, and we talked for a while, and my suggestion to her was that she should sit as a way of bringing some closure, as a way of mourning for the relationship that could have been but wasn't, mourning for the father that she wished she had or deserved to have and didn't. And at the end of the Shiva period, she told me that she felt a sense of closure she had never felt in her life. I'm going like, yay me, I got the right answer. But what I didn't tell her that I will tell you is I knew the right answer. When I was in rabbinical school, I wrote a lengthy discourse as part of my studies on the question of kibud av va'em in circumstances where one's parent is absent in however we define it. And I wrote the paper because it was a question that was relevant to me. I will share with you something that I don't share very often. But my parents were separated when I was 10 months old. I never saw my dad. Ever. When I was 15, about a month after my Zeta, my grandfather died. That was the adult male figure in my life. We get a call from the rabbi of the shul over to talk to us, and he got a call from my dad, who showed up at my grandfather's funeral and wanted to see me. I will give you, again, the slightly politer version of what I said, but my answer was essentially no. Was that an act of kibud av? Probably not. But it weighed on me enough that almost a decade later, I had to see what our tradition had to say on the subject. Because by then, I sort of realized that my experience was unique to me, but not unique in the world. So the question is, kibud av va'em might be easy when things are good. When you have a real love and respect for your parent, you put your hands down in the mud. You do whatever you have to because you want to. You feel that urge, that urgency to do so. And the challenge is, how do you navigate the other stuff? And so our sages try to guide us. But they also recognize that this mitzvah, because it is so tied in emotionally to who we are, to who our parents are, to the situation, to the challenges, to the everything that goes on in life, that it was viewed as the impossible mitzvah. Let's stop here, and we invite everyone to turn back to their sidurim.